There are places on this planet where logic falters, where events unfold that seem to laugh in the face of science. Imagine a room where objects move on their own. A ship that vanishes in calm waters, never to be found. A village abandoned overnight, meals still on the table, with no trace of its people. These are not stories plucked from horror films or novels. These are real mysteries, documented, reported, investigated, and yet, after decades of searching, no one can explain them. Why do some locations become magnets for the inexplicable? Could there be natural forces at play that we don't yet understand? Or are these events cracks in reality itself? Glimpses into a world beyond the rules we know. Tonight, we'll step into those shadows. We'll journey through strange landscapes, chilling case studies, and eerie puzzles that scientists, skeptics, and believers alike can't fully unravel. Because something happened here, and the answers are still missing. Chapter 1: The Nature of Mystery. Why do unsolved mysteries hold us in their grip? Why do stories of the unexplained echo louder in our minds than tales with neat, tidy endings? It's because the unknown sits at the very core of human curiosity. We are creatures who crave answers, who build entire civilizations on knowledge. Yet, when we collide with events that refuse to be explained, a disappearance, a strange light, a sound with no source, it unsettles us in a way nothing else can. Think about it. When you hear about an unsolved case, do you ever feel that itch in the back of your mind, that urge to piece the puzzle together yourself? That's the pull of mystery. It's an invitation and a challenge, whispering, what if the truth is stranger than anything you expect? From ancient myths to modern conspiracy forums, the unexplained has always drawn us in, not because we like fear, but because mystery makes us feel alive. It sparks wonder. It reminds us the world still has shadows we haven't mapped. Chapter 2: The Abandoned Village. Imagine walking into a village where every house stands silent, every door hangs open, and meals sit half-eaten on wooden tables. Clothes are draped over chairs, tools lie mid-use, but the people, every single one, are gone. This isn't the start of a ghost story. These villages exist. Throughout history, entire communities have been found abandoned without explanation. One of the most famous is the Inuit village at Lake Anjikuni in Canada, where in the 1930s a fur trapper stumbled upon homes emptied overnight. No footprints, no signs of struggle, just silence. And it's not the only case. Across continents, we find echoes of the same haunting theme. Places left behind in an instant, as if life itself was interrupted. Was it disease, famine, a sudden migration, or something stranger, something beyond the grasp of historians and scientists? What chills us most isn't just the absence of people. It's the way daily life seems frozen mid-breath, as though time itself stopped, and the inhabitants simply vanished. Chapter 3: Ghosts in the Room. You're sitting alone in a quiet house when suddenly, a floorboard creaks upstairs, a door slowly swings shut, a glass on the counter trembles and slides as if pushed by unseen hands. For centuries, stories like these have echoed across cultures. Haunted rooms, restless spirits, objects moving on their own. Phenomena that people swear are real, even when science struggles to find proof. One of the most famous examples is the Enfield poltergeist case in 1970s London. A family reported knocks on walls, furniture shifting, and voices coming from nowhere. Investigators, journalists, and even police officers witnessed strange events that couldn't be easily dismissed. Skeptics suggested trickery, exaggerated claims, or the suggestive power of fear. And yet, not every account could be explained away. What's fascinating about ghost stories is how consistent they are. From ancient Rome to modern-day America, people describe the same kinds of phenomena. Footsteps, whispers, cold spots, shadows at the edge of vision. Could so many across time and culture really be imagining the same thing? Or are they touching on something science hasn't yet been able to measure? Chapter 4: Vanishing Ships. The open sea has always been a stage for mystery. Vast, unpredictable, and unforgiving, it swallows ships and stories alike. But some disappearances go beyond storms and shipwrecks. They leave behind puzzles that defy reason. Take the case of the Mary Celeste. In 1872, this merchant ship was found adrift in the Atlantic. Its sails intact, cargo untouched, and supplies more than enough for the voyage. The crew, however, was gone. No distress signal, no signs of struggle, no explanation. Lifeboats were missing, but why would sailors abandon a perfectly seaworthy ship? Over the years, theories piled up. Piracy, mutiny, sudden storms, even sea monsters. Yet none fully fit the evidence. The Mary Celeste became a ghost ship not because of what was found, but because of what wasn't. And it's far from alone. Maritime history is filled with similar tales. Ships discovered without crews, logbooks ending mid-sentence, meals left uneaten. Some of these stories may be exaggerated, but the pattern is undeniable. The ocean doesn't just take lives. Sometimes it erases explanations. Chapter 5: The Unfinished Message. There's something deeply unsettling about words that end mid-thought. A note scribbled in haste. A radio transmission cut short. A message that begins to tell a story, but never finishes it. One of the most chilling examples is the SOS sent by the SS Aurang Medan, a Dutch freighter said to have sent out a distress call in the late 1940s. The transmission was fragmented. All officers, including captain, dead. Lying in chart room and bridge, possibly whole crew dead. Moments later came a final cryptic phrase, "I die." When rescuers eventually located the ship, the crew was reportedly found lifeless, their faces twisted in terror. Before the ship could be towed to port, it mysteriously caught fire and sank, taking all physical evidence with it. To this day, some argue the entire story was a hoax. Others insist it was real, pointing to details too strange to invent. But whether true or exaggerated, the tale of the Aurang Medan captures a universal fear. The message that arrives too late, telling us something went terribly wrong, without explaining what. And these unfinished messages don't only exist at sea. From abandoned diary entries to pilots' last radio calls, they serve as haunting fragments of human experience, windows into moments we can never fully understand. Chapter 6: Vanishing Planes. It's one thing for a single person to disappear, but when a massive passenger plane vanishes from the sky, leaving behind no wreckage, no explanation, that's the kind of mystery that shakes the world. The most famous modern example, of course, is Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. In March 2014, the plane carrying 239 people simply disappeared from radar. Despite one of the largest and most expensive search efforts in history, only a handful of possible debris pieces have ever been recovered. How does a machine the size of a building vanish in an age of satellites, GPS, and constant surveillance? But MH370 isn't the only case. Decades earlier, in 1945, Flight 19, 5 U.S. Navy bombers on a training mission, vanished over the Bermuda Triangle. A rescue plane sent after them also disappeared. Not a single body was ever recovered. Planes vanish for many reasons: mechanical failure, navigational errors, storms. Yet in certain cases, there's just too little evidence to draw any solid conclusion. And when the skies themselves, symbols of human progress and mastery, swallow technology whole, it feels almost personal. Because if we can't trust the air above us, where can we? Chapter 7: The Disappearing Road. We think of roads as permanent. Concrete and asphalt don't just vanish. Yet throughout history, there are strange stories of travelers who claim a road they once took, sometimes even one used frequently, suddenly no longer exists. In parts of Europe, there are legends of phantom roads that appear at night, guiding travelers deep into forests or across fields, only to vanish by morning. In some cases, people who swore they had driven or walked along a route later found no trace of it on any map. One unsettling modern tale comes from the United States, where hikers reported following a dirt path that seemed well-worn, leading deeper into the woods. When they turned back minutes later, the road had disappeared, replaced by thick underbrush as if it had never existed. Are these just tricks of memory, illusions formed by fatigue and fear? Or could they point to something stranger, like shifts in perception, time, or reality itself? The road is supposed to be a symbol of certainty, of direction. So when it becomes unstable, when the path beneath our feet can no longer be trusted, it forces us to question not just the world outside, but the reliability of our own senses. Chapter 8: Whispers in the Sky. Imagine standing outside on a quiet night when suddenly, from above, you hear it. A low hum, a chorus of voices, or a sound that doesn't belong to any plane, bird, or machine. Across the world, people have reported eerie noises coming from the sky. Metallic groans, trumpet-like blasts, or faint whispers carried on the wind. In 2011, videos began circulating online of strange sky trumpets, echoing over cities from Canada to Ukraine. Some dismissed them as hoaxes or industrial noise, but many who witnessed them firsthand swore the sounds were too vast, too resonant, to be man-made. Yet reports like these aren't new. For centuries, communities have described mystery booms and unexplained tones in the heavens. Ancient texts mention celestial horns as omens, while indigenous traditions sometimes interpret sky sounds as messages from spirits. Science offers possible explanations. Atmospheric shifts, earthquakes producing infrasound, or distant industrial noises bouncing across unusual weather conditions. Still, these answers feel incomplete when people describe the sound not just as heard, but as felt reverberating through their bodies. So what are these whispers in the sky? Misunderstood natural phenomena? Or evidence of something greater, something the Earth or perhaps the universe itself is trying to tell us? Chapter 9: The Vanished Treasure. Gold, jewels, artifacts. Human history is littered with treasures. Some so valuable they shaped wars, toppled empires, and fueled legends. But what happens when these treasures vanish, leaving behind only whispers and empty maps? Take the case of the Amber Room, often called the eighth wonder of the world. Built in the 18th century, this dazzling chamber was made entirely of amber panels, gold leaf, and mirrors. During World War II, the Nazis looted it and shipped it to Königsberg. And then, just like that, it disappeared. Was it destroyed in bombings? Hidden in a secret bunker? Smuggled away into private hands? To this day, no one knows. Or consider the lost treasure of the Knights Templar, said to contain immeasurable wealth and sacred relics. When the order was dissolved in the 14th century, the treasure simply vanished. Did it sink into the depths of the sea? Was it hidden under cathedrals? Or does it still lie buried somewhere, waiting to be uncovered? These vanished treasures haunt us not only because of their value, but because they represent lost chapters of history. They're reminders that even the most tangible things, stone, gold, jewels, can slip into the shadows, leaving us chasing ghosts. Chapter 10: Sacred and Cursed Places. Some locations feel different. You walk in and the air itself seems heavier. Footsteps echo strangely. Shadows fall where they shouldn't. Across the world, humans have long sensed that certain places carry power, whether sacred or cursed. Take the ruins of Angkor Wat in Cambodia. The temple complex is magnificent, a testament to human ingenuity, yet explorers and locals alike have reported a strange sensation. Moments where the past seems to press in, where time feels warped. Or consider the Tower of London, steeped in centuries of executions, imprisonment, and whispered betrayals. Visitors often describe chills, strange sounds, and a sense that the walls themselves remember. And then there are the cursed. Villages said to be haunted by plagues, battlefields where those who disturb the soil fall ill, and tombs booby-trapped not just physically, but with legends that promise misfortune. What draws humans to these places, even knowing their reputations? Curiosity, awe, the chance to touch history even at the risk of fear. Sacred or cursed, these locations blur the line between reality and legend, creating spaces where logic struggles to keep pace with imagination. Some are explainable psychological effects, architecture, or history, but others resist understanding, leaving visitors with a feeling that something ancient, unseen, and inexplicable still lingers. Chapter 11: Lost Technology. History is filled with discoveries that make us pause and wonder. How could someone, centuries ago, create something so advanced, only for it to vanish from knowledge? Consider the Antikythera mechanism, recovered from a shipwreck off the Greek coast in 1901. This intricate device, dating back over 2,000 years, could predict eclipses and track celestial movements. Technology so sophisticated that scientists believed nothing like it existed until the 18th century. Who built it? How did such knowledge disappear for centuries? Then there are the Baghdad batteries, clay jars containing metal rods and acidic substances that some suggest were early electrical cells. Or Leonardo da Vinci's sketches of flying machines, devices so ahead of their time that only in recent decades have engineers been able to replicate them. These lost technologies fascinate because they challenge our understanding of progress. History is often presented as a straight line, step by step, invention by invention. But these artifacts hint at detours, dead ends, and leaps of brilliance that were lost to time. And perhaps the most haunting question isn't how they were made, but why they disappeared. Were they destroyed, forgotten, suppressed? Or did humanity simply stumble, leaving brilliance behind, waiting for someone else to rediscover it? Chapter 12: Messages from Nowhere. Imagine receiving a message with no sender, no explanation, and no context, words or symbols that appear as if the universe itself is trying to communicate. Across history, such occurrences have baffled scholars, cryptographers, and ordinary people alike. Take the Voynich manuscript, a book filled with strange symbols, unknown plants, and diagrams that no one has been able to decode for centuries. Linguists, codebreakers, and AI algorithms have all tried, yet the meaning remains elusive. Is it an elaborate hoax, a lost language, or a message meant for someone or something beyond our comprehension? Then there are modern examples. Mysterious radio signals like the WOW signal detected in 1977, a brief spike in the heavens that suggested an intelligent source, but vanished before anyone could trace it. Amateur codebreakers have spent years analyzing it, yet its origin remains a puzzle. And sometimes the messages are simpler, yet equally perplexing. Postcards arriving decades late, letters addressed to nowhere, notes tucked into bottles floating across oceans. They seem to defy logic, challenging our sense of order and expectation. What makes these messages so haunting isn't just that they are unexplained. It's that they feel deliberate. Someone or something chose to send them, and we, the recipients, are left to wonder. What were they trying to tell us, and why can't we understand? Chapter 13: When Science Falters. Science is our tool for understanding the world. It measures, tests, observes, and explains. And yet, there are moments when it falters, when phenomena resist every effort to categorize, analyze, or predict. Consider the Taos hum, a low-frequency noise heard by residents in New Mexico for decades. Engineers installed sensitive microphones, ran tests, and studied the geology. Nothing explained the persistent hum. Some locals reported sleepless nights, headaches, and anxiety, all triggered by a sound science could neither prove nor deny. Then there's ball lightning, glowing orbs that appear during storms, moving unpredictably, sometimes passing through walls without leaving a trace. Modern physics can model certain aspects, but no one can reliably produce or control it, even in laboratories. These are just small examples. Across fields, from astronomy to neurology, researchers occasionally encounter events that defy explanation. Instruments fail to capture them, patterns resist understanding, and theories crumble under the weight of anomalies. And the fascination lies in that failure. There's something deeply human about standing on the edge of knowledge, peering into a phenomenon that seems to mock our understanding. For scientists and lay people alike, these moments are reminders that no matter how much we know, the universe has corners still shrouded in darkness. Chapter 14: The Edge of Reality. What if reality isn't as solid as we think? What if time, space, and perception aren't constants, but flexible, fragile constructs? Across history, there have been reports of moments when people encounter the edge of reality, experiences that defy physics, memory, and logic. Consider the accounts of people lost in forests, only to emerge hours or days later with no recollection of how they traveled, sometimes finding themselves in locations they could not have reached. Or urban explorers reporting buildings that shift internally, hallways stretching impossibly long, doors leading to rooms that weren't there before. These aren't just stories of disorientation. Witnesses describe a deep, uncanny sense of wrongness, a feeling that the world has become alien, like stepping into a dream that refuses to end. Even when rational explanations are suggested, fatigue, hallucinations, or psychological stress, the intensity and consistency of the reports make them difficult to dismiss entirely. And it's not only isolated incidents. Legends from multiple cultures speak of liminal spaces, edges of the world, thin places, thresholds between this reality and another. In these moments, time can feel fluid, objects behave strangely, and the rules we rely on seem optional. Could these experiences hint at dimensions we cannot perceive? Or are they glimpses into the limits of human perception itself, a reminder that our understanding of reality is incomplete, even fragile? Chapter 15, Shared Visions. Have you ever wondered if dreams are truly private? Across history, countless reports suggest they are not. People in different locations, sometimes continents apart, have described seeing the same images, receiving identical messages, or experiencing visions that feel shared. One famous case involves the sleep experiment in a small European village during the 1960s. Residents reported eerily similar dreams, a shadowy figure appearing in their homes, whispering warnings about an unspecified danger. The phenomenon wasn't isolated. Families, neighbors, even strangers described overlapping imagery. Modern science calls this collective consciousness, or attributes it to cultural influence and coincidence. Yet in some cases, such as soldiers before battles or communities before disasters, shared dreams seem to anticipate real-world events. It's as if a single vision ripples outward, touching multiple minds at once. And it's not limited to humans. Reports exist of animals reacting to threats that humans later witness in dreams. Subtle warnings detected before an earthquake or storm. Are these genuine premonitions? Or the brain's pattern recognition systems exaggerating coincidences? What fascinates and unnerves is the intimacy of shared visions. It's a space where subjective experience converges, where imagination and reality blur, and where the ordinary act of dreaming becomes something far more mysterious, almost communal. Chapter 16, The Vanishing Crowd. Imagine walking through a bustling city street, only to look around and realize that everyone else has vanished. Shops are empty, cars abandoned, voices gone. The sensation is surreal, disorienting, and profoundly unsettling. Throughout history, there have been reports of entire crowds disappearing mysteriously. Some are tied to legends, like the vanishing pilgrims of medieval Europe, who reportedly walked into forests and were never seen again. Others come from modern accounts. Concerts, festivals, or urban streets where witnesses claim the crowd suddenly evaporated, leaving only echoes of their presence. One notable story comes from Japan, where hikers described groups disappearing while on trails in remote mountains. The air grew still, sounds muted, and when they returned to the path moments later, every trace of the missing group was gone. No tracks, no signs of struggle, nothing. Skeptics often point to hallucinations, stress, or collective misperception. Yet these accounts persist across time and cultures, suggesting something more complex might be at play. Could there be brief, localized distortions of reality? Or do these stories point to a phenomenon beyond our current understanding, where entire pockets of life can vanish, leaving only questions behind? The vanishing crowd is haunting not just for the absence itself, but for the way it makes us confront vulnerability. To witness life disappearing in an instant is to stare at the fragility of existence, and wonder if the world is far stranger than we realize. Chapter 17, The Time Slip. Imagine walking down a familiar street, only to realize that everything around you has changed. Not just the people or the fashion, but the very world itself. Signs are different, buildings are unfamiliar, and even the air feels charged with another era. You glance at a watch, and the minutes feel distorted. You've slipped into another time, Reports of time slips have surfaced for centuries. In England, travelers have described stepping through a hedge or turning a corner, only to find themselves in a village that hasn't existed for decades. In the United States, witnesses recount wandering into towns that vanished from maps, encountering people in outdated clothing who seem entirely real, yet disappear when approached. Skeptics argue these experiences are hallucinations, stress-induced visions, or memory errors. But the accounts are often detailed, consistent, and emotionally vivid. People recall smells, sounds, and tactile sensations that feel as real as waking life. Some even return with physical evidence: footprints, photographs, or objects that appear slightly out of place in their original time. The concept of time slips challenges our most basic assumptions. Time feels like a steady river, flowing forward without interruption. Yet these experiences hint at something far stranger: pockets of temporal anomaly, where the past, or possibly the future, presses against our present, allowing glimpses into moments we are not supposed to witness. Chapter 18: The Vanishing Object. We take it for granted. Objects exist, we see them, touch them, use them. But what happens when an item simply vanishes, without a trace, without warning, sometimes never to return? Across history, these disappearances have baffled witnesses and investigators alike. Consider the story of the missing keys, wallets, or personal items that reappear in places that make no sense, sometimes hours, days, or even years later. In some cases, entire artworks or historical artifacts have gone missing from museums, only to resurface decades later under circumstances that defy logic. One of the most famous accounts involves a series of missing clocks and furniture in a European castle during the 18th century. Residents reported items disappearing from locked rooms, only to reappear weeks later in completely different parts of the estate. There were no signs of theft, and no rational explanation could account for the movement. Even modern reports of vanishing objects echo similar themes. A laptop left on a desk disappears, only to be found months later in a location that could not have been accessed. Scientific explanations range from human error and memory lapses to electromagnetic interference. Yet in many cases, these disappearances happen too frequently, too consistently to be fully dismissed. What makes the vanishing object truly unsettling is not its material loss, but the way it shakes our sense of reality. If something as ordinary and tangible as an object can disappear without cause, how much of the world around us can we really trust? Chapter 19: Phantom Sounds. Have you ever heard a sound that shouldn't exist? A door creaking in an empty room, a whisper in the dark, or a distant melody that vanishes when you search for its source. Phantom sounds have haunted humans for centuries, appearing in homes, forests, and remote locations with no logical explanation. One well-documented example is the bloop, a mysterious ultra-low frequency sound detected in the Pacific Ocean in 1997. It was so powerful that it could be heard across thousands of kilometers. Marine biologists initially speculated about giant sea creatures, but no evidence of such life has ever been found. The sound remains unexplained, a reminder that our planet still harbors audible mysteries. On land, people report similar phenomena: unexplained knocking, humming, or metallic sounds that seem to follow them. Sometimes these noises appear in clusters, entire neighborhoods hearing a low rumble that dissipates without cause. Infrasound, atmospheric pressure changes, and seismic activity can explain some occurrences, but not all. What makes phantom sounds particularly unsettling is their intimacy. Unlike visual anomalies, these sounds often evoke a visceral reaction: fear, unease, even physical discomfort. They remind us that reality isn't only seen, it's heard, felt, and sometimes experienced in ways our understanding struggles to explain. Chapter 20: The Lost Expedition. Throughout history, explorers have ventured into the unknown, driven by curiosity, ambition, or the promise of discovery. But sometimes, these expeditions never return, leaving behind only traces or nothing at all. One of the most famous examples is the Franklin expedition of 1845. Sir John Franklin and his crew set out to chart the Northwest Passage in the Arctic. 2 ships, 129 men, and a promise of discovery, but they were never seen again. Years later, skeletal remains, scattered artifacts, and haunting notes revealed only glimpses of their final days. Starvation, cold, and perhaps something more mysterious claimed the expedition, but the full story remains elusive. Other lost expeditions haunt history as well. Entire parties of hikers, scientists, and explorers have vanished in jungles, mountains, and deserts, sometimes leaving behind journals or equipment that provide tantalizing clues, but never answers. These disappearances are terrifying because they strike at the human spirit of exploration. They remind us that even well-prepared adventurers are vulnerable to nature, circumstance, and the unknown. The lost expedition leaves us with questions that gnaw at the imagination. What did they see? What challenges did they face in their final moments? And why, in some cases, does the world seem to have swallowed them whole, leaving only whispers in the wilderness?
Chapter 21. The Shadow People. Have you ever felt a presence in the corner of your eye, just out of focus, only to turn and see nothing? Many call them shadow people, dark, humanoid silhouettes that seem to move with intent, often appearing at night or during moments of heightened awareness. Reports of shadow people span centuries and continents. Witnesses describe fleeting encounters, a shape crossing a hallway, standing at the foot of the bed, or lingering by a doorway. Sometimes they vanish instantly. Other times, they feel like observers, silently watching, waiting, almost sentient.
Explanations vary.
Sleep paralysis often produces hallucinations, creating terrifying visions of figures in the room. Some suggest psychological stress, anxiety, or neurological factors as triggers. Yet countless accounts occur outside sleep, during daylight, or in fully alert states. The consistency of the reports makes them difficult to dismiss entirely. Folklore interprets shadow people differently. In some traditions, they are spirits trapped between worlds. In others, they are omens, guides, or even malevolent entities. The fear they provoke is universal, tapping into deep, primal parts of our psyche, the instinctual dread of the unseen, the unknown, and the unknowable. What makes shadow people truly unsettling is their persistence. They appear across cultures, ages, and geographies, suggesting that if they are more than hallucinations, they represent something fundamental about our interaction with the unseen. Chapter 22. The Silent Forest. Forests are usually alive with sound, rustling leaves, birdsong, the distant murmur of water. But some forests are different. In certain places around the world, visitors report an eerie, unnatural silence, a hush that seems to swallow every sound, leaving only an unsettling stillness. One famous example is Japan's Aokigahara, the so-called suicide forest. Beyond its tragic associations, hikers often describe an oppressive quiet, a feeling that the forest is watching. Animals become scarce, voices echo oddly, and even wind seems to hesitate among the trees. In other regions, such as parts of North America and Eastern Europe, similar phenomena are reported. Forests where radios fail, footsteps sound distant, and the natural rhythm of life is interrupted. Scientists speculate that unusual topography, tree density, or acoustic anomalies could create these effects, but nothing fully explains the profound psychological impact. The silent forest isn't just quiet, it feels alive in a different way. Witnesses describe a palpable tension, an almost conscious awareness, as if the forest itself is aware of intruders. Many report feelings of isolation, disorientation, or sudden dread, even in broad daylight. Some folklore calls these forests sacred or cursed, suggesting that spirits, ancient magic, or cosmic forces linger in these quiet places. Whether myth, science, or something in between, the silent forest reminds us that nature can be both familiar and terrifying, a place where reality seems to pause, leaving humans unsettled and uncertain. Chapter 23. The Vanishing Village. Imagine arriving at a place that should be bustling with life, only to find it empty. Houses stand intact, smoke rises from chimneys, yet not a single soul is in sight. Streets lie deserted, belongings left as if the residents vanished in an instant. Throughout history, there are accounts of entire villages disappearing under mysterious circumstances. In Europe, legends tell of towns abandoned overnight, often after strange lights, sounds, or omens. In some cases, centuries later, explorers find ruins, but no records explain why people left so suddenly. One modern example is the village of Gunkanjima or Hashima Island in Japan. Once thriving with coal miners and families, it was abandoned in the 1970s when the mines closed. While documented, visitors described the eerie silence and perfectly preserved buildings as though everyone had simply evaporated, creating a haunting snapshot of life frozen in time. Other cases are less documented, but equally mysterious. Entire settlements in remote areas, sometimes left behind with meals on tables or clothes drying on lines, disappear without warning. Skeptics cite natural disasters, disease, or migration, but the abruptness and completeness of some vanishings defy ordinary explanation. The vanishing village evokes profound unease because it confronts us with the fragility of human existence. It raises questions about our connection to place, time, and community, reminding us that even what feels permanent can be swept away in an instant, sometimes leaving no trace beyond mystery and imagination. Underscore, 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 underscore. Chapter 24, The Eternal Watcher. Imagine walking alone in a familiar place, only to feel eyes on you. Not a passing glance from a stranger, but a persistent, almost tangible awareness, an invisible observer who never leaves. Across history, countless cultures and individuals have reported encounters with what can only be described as eternal watchers. These experiences aren't always visual. People describe feelings of being followed, subtle movements in peripheral vision, or shadows that linger just beyond perception. Some report hearing faint footsteps, whispers, or the soft rustle of unseen entities, even when no one else is present. Legends abound. Guardians, spirits, or deities assigned to watch over or sometimes judge humans. In modern terms, some psychologists suggest hypervigilance or the brain's pattern recognition systems create the sensation of being watched. Yet, accounts are often too precise and consistent to dismiss entirely. The concept of the eternal watcher taps into a fundamental human instinct, awareness of observation. It is evolutionarily advantageous to sense predators or hidden threats, but what happens when that instinct is triggered without a tangible source? The result is a mix of fear, curiosity, and awe, a recognition that some presences might exist just beyond comprehension. Whether a psychological artifact or an actual phenomenon, the Eternal Watcher forces us to confront the idea that we may never be truly alone. In the shadows of forests, streets, or even our own homes, the Watcher's gaze lingers, unseen but undeniably felt. Underscore, 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 underscore. Chapter 25. The Unsolvable Mystery. Throughout history, humanity has faced questions that seem to have no answers, mysteries that defy logic, science, and reason. These are the enigmas that linger, the puzzles that resist solution, and the phenomena that leave even the most brilliant minds scratching their heads. Consider phenomena like spontaneous human disappearances, impossible artifacts, or cosmic signals that defy explanation. Each case challenges the very foundation of what we consider knowable. Scientists, historians, and investigators have poured time, effort, and intellect into unraveling these mysteries, yet many remain unsolved. What makes them so compelling isn't just the lack of answers, but the sense that there is something beyond our grasp, something fundamentally alien or hidden in plain sight. It's the tension between curiosity and limitation, knowledge and the unknowable. Perhaps the most famous unsolvable mysteries are those that touch us personally, strange coincidences, premonitions that come true, or patterns we glimpse in life that vanish when analyzed. They remind us that the universe is vast, complex, and sometimes indifferent to our understanding. And maybe that's why humans are drawn to mystery. Even when the mind craves closure, there is an irresistible pull toward the unexplained, the strange, the impossible. Unsolvable mysteries are the shadows at the edge of reason, inviting us to wonder, to explore, and ultimately, to accept that some questions may never be answered.